Think of your favorite film. Think of the greatest stories of all time. Think of the gods. You'll find out that the number 3 plays an extremely crucial role. Trimurti, mind, body, soul, birth, life, death, hero, villain, victim. Hi, my name is Indrakshi Singh Chundawat, and in today's video we will be talking about the drama triangle. So Stephen Kapman, an American therapist and the co-founder of transactional analysis, created this model to help us navigate through relationships by figuring out what role we want to play or what role we are playing in the relationship to solve a problem or whether in general. So he talked about this model in the context of relationships, and I am going to talk about it in the context of storytelling. So for storytelling, here's the model, by the way. There are 3 corners, and on each of those corners we have our 3 role players. The first one is the victim, the second one is the persecutor, which is the villain, and the third one is the hero, which is also called the rescuer here. So this model is so important because without these 3 roles we don't have a story really. You'll find out that in some stories you're not able to figure out who's the villain, who's the victim and who's the hero, all that clearly as some other stories. So you'll see that even in those stories there is a distinction between 3 roles even for a very short moment. So I'll take 2 examples. The first one is going to be a film in which these 3 roles are visible clearly, and the other one in which you might have to think a little bit before deciding who's the villain, who's the victim and who's the hero. So our first role is the victim. The victim is someone who is helpless, who is powerless, and they're always waiting for someone else to come and help them. They're not ready to take their own responsibility. So while in reality this might be a wrong way of approaching problems, in a story this is important because this victim is the same role that's also going to, call the hero to action. The victim is going to make the audience sympathize with them. It's important that your victim is stirring sympathy into the audience. Make sure your audience is sympathizing with your victim. Show them so helpless that the audience starts pitying them. For example, in the first film, Bahubali, the beginning, we saw that Devsena is being tormented by the villain. So here, while she's a powerful woman, here in this film, we know that she's being tormented, that she's not being treated right, and she's always waiting for Bahubali to come and help her. She's always waiting for the hero to come and help her. So here, even if she wants to help herself, she is not able to do it because her role is of the victim. So make sure you show the victim in such a way that the audience thinks that there's no way they can help themselves, there's no way they can take their own responsibility. Your victim has to look very helpless and powerless. So the victim is important for this reason. The other thing is that the victim is also, besides calling the hero to action, he's also calling the villain to action. The villain is going to torment them more and the hero is going to help them. So the problem here is the victim. So in any story we have a problem and we try to solve that problem. So the victim here is the problem, and this is the first role that we see in the drama triangle. So our second role player is the villain. The villain is the bad guy. They do bad things. They are tormenting the victim. That's the reason the villain is also called the bad guy. So why is the villain the way he is? It's because of some tragic backstory. So a hero and the villain, both of them can have a tragic backstory, but still they choose very different paths for various reasons. The villain has chosen the wrong path because he's the villain, and the hero has chosen the right path because he's the hero. So in the film Bahubali, we saw that Bhallal Dev and Bahubali had the same upbringing. Then what went wrong? Why did Bahubali choose to become a good person, and why did Bhallal Dev choose to become a bad person? So Bhallal Dev's tragic story was that he was the real son. his mother's real son, and he still wasn't the king, and Bahubali was not her real son, and he still became the king. So this was Bhallal Dev's tragedy. What was Bahubali's tragedy? His tragedy was that once he became the king, once he did become a king, the throne was snatched from him and he was sent away in exile. So this was the hero's tragedy. But still, see, both had their own tragedies, but still the way they chose to act, the way they chose to react to their respective tragedies is what defines them as the villain and the victim. So the villain has to be a bad person. One thing about the villain is that he will always take things wrong, and one thing about the hero is that he will always take things the right way. So the villain has to be hated. You've got to make sure that no matter what has happened with the villain in the past, their actions should not be justified. Whatever happened with the villain in the film, no matter what went wrong, his actions were not justified. Bhallal Dev's actions towards Dev Sena and the public in his kingdom were not justified. So this is the reason they are the villain. So make sure your villain is hated by the audience. Make sure your villain is hated by everyone in the story as well. The villain has to be the bad guy. The third role player in the drama triangle is the rescuer, the hero. So the rescuer is someone who is selfless, who is helpful, and someone who is always trying to solve problems in the story. The hero is also going to be saving the victim. Like I said before, the victim is going to call the hero to action. So the hero is going to take action to save the victim. Another thing about the hero is that they're always going to do things that are in the favor of the people around them and not just themselves. They're not selfish, unlike the villain. So in Bahubali, we saw that Bahubali helps Dev Sena, even if it might not have an immediate impact in his own life. He knows that if I am he has tried to solve the problems. He knows that this is a problem and I have to solve this problem. He's taken responsibility. Your audience has to love the hero. Your audience has to feel relatable to the hero. The hero is also going to have flaws, but that is also important because a hero who is too perfect is not relatable. So they have to have their own tragedy. For example, Bahubali has his own problems. He had his own problems, but he solved them. This way, Bahubali is making me feel relatable to himself. He's making sure that I know that just like the audience, the people in the audience have their problems, the hero has problems too. So the audience is sitting there and thinking that, okay, if I was in such a situation, I would have done the same thing as the hero, not as the villain, because the audience wants to feel good about themselves. Everyone wants to feel good about themselves. That's the reason we listen to stories mostly, to feel better about ourselves. So that is the reason your hero has to be someone who is able to make the audience feel related to himself, who's able to create joy among the audience. The second example that I was talking about, where the distinction between the hero and the victim and the villain is blurry, is Dangal. We don't see a clear distinction between these three roles. We don't know who's the hero, we don't know who's the victim, we don't know who is the villain. For once, we might think that either Geeta's dad is the hero or Geeta herself is the hero. But then what are they? What are the reasons that are making them the hero? There's no victim, they've not helped anyone, there's no villain either, they've not fought anyone off. So you'll see that in the second half of the film, we had Geeta's new coach who wasn't training her in the way that will help her win the game in the future. So here we saw that Mahavir Singh, her dad, comes in and helps Geeta out of the problem. Geeta here wasn't an immediate victim because she didn't know there was a problem, that she was in a problem. She did not know that she was in a problem. So that also equals to the victim, because if the victim doesn't know that they are in a problem, they are not going to be able to do anything about it. What are they going to pull themselves out of if there's no problem? So Geeta doesn't know that she is in a problem, and Mahavir Singh, her dad, knows that there is a problem and that I have to help my daughter, I have to save her. So Mahavir Singh comes the dad comes in and helps his daughter, and the coach, who's the villain, is fought off. So this is another example which shows that even if the drama triangle is not all that visible in a story, it is there. The drama triangle is there even when it's not visible. Thank you so much for watching.